Are we streaming? I'm not sure. I actually have to go back in and see because there is quite a bit of a delay. So if anyone's already there, hang out for just a second while I get this thing adjusted. And hopefully, yes, it says live now, but it's got a different stream than where I set it to earlier. So I hope that this is coming through in the right spot. I'm a little challenged when it comes to getting this thing set up. So, okay, so it says I'm live. Hopefully this is the correct stream, and if not, I'm sure I will find out soon. How's it going? This is Mike from GoCellPhoneRepair.com. And this is the third live stream that I've done. Just basically, for anyone who hasn't been here before, this is all about cell phone repair and cell phone stuff. So I wanted to have a general discussion that could be interactive and not just me talking to myself and then playing it back later. So there is an audio version of this also as a podcast that I put up on my website, GoCellPhoneRepair.com. You can find it on iTunes, Google Music, and a few other places that I didn't even know were actually serving or streaming, or however that goes, allowing people to download from that. So what I have today, I wanted to start off with, this is kind of an interesting one. If you haven't already heard, it looks like Sony might be paying out some money. And this is from slashgear.com. It's appeared on a few other news websites. And what happened apparently is that it sounds like Sony was a little too aggressive about the way that they advertise their water-resistant phones. Everything from the first Xperia all the way up to the Xperia 5. So that is obviously going to be a problem. As we all know, phones are not really designed to be put underwater for extended periods of time, but manufacturers do like to make their products look as impressive as they possibly can. So that leads to people trying things that they probably shouldn't be doing. So apparently there is a lawsuit here, and if you want to go to the website, I will obviously include a link so that you can follow and go read this thing. But if you scroll down here a bit, what I thought was interesting is that, well, I'm on the wrong page. Let's go back here and try that again. So if we come down, there's a bit of a lag here. And where is it? You can see I've been shopping for microscopes again. Waterproof ratings don't exactly tell you that you can use your phone underwater. Well, they don't, but a lot of times they will imply that, again, through their advertising. So he says at most, they tell you how long something, be it a phone or any other device, will survive underwater at a certain depth. Sony, however, may have used that to advertise how their smartphone may be actively used underwater, while which someone owners, okay, that's got to be a typo, which some owners experience to be far from the truth. And we already know that's the case. Any of us that are in the business, phones are not made to go underwater, especially for long periods of time and take pictures and things like that. And one of the things that makes it even worse is that if you have a phone and you think that it can be submerged, when in fact it's not designed, for to be left at great depths for long periods of time, once the water gets inside of the phone, it's very difficult for it to be able to get back out. So evaporation would normally do some of the work as far as drying the phone out. A lot of times we have to go in and clear out any corrosion that's already taken place on the inside. But when you have that highly water resistant phone, it's going to basically trap all the moisture on the inside. So when that happens, the chances of something going bad are increased greatly, not to mention the fact that a lot of people are just going to throw their phone into a bag of rice or silica gel or something like that, which isn't going to do a whole lot really, beyond the normal rate of evaporation that you would have even if you didn't have the rice or anything like that. But what it does do is lets the moisture sit in there for a longer period of time. So I guess what we're saying here is that if you have a Sony Xperia, don't take it swimming. If you do, obviously do that at your own risk. But if you have had problems because of moisture leaking into that phone, apparently there's a chance that you may be able to get some compensation from Sony. So by all means, I would encourage you to take that up with them. I really despise the fact that manufacturers will try to make their phones look like they do things that they really can't do, and that leads to people being very disappointed. And the ironic thing to me was, you get the iPhone 7, and it's supposed to have a very high IP rating, which means that it is water resistant. But at the same time, if you go to an Apple store and they look inside your phone and they see that it has been exposed to moisture and the moisture is inside of the phone, then your warranty is voided at that point. So that should give you an idea about the amount of confidence that they have in that phone being water resistant or waterproof. You know, they know that it's not infallible. Things can get inside. And when they do, it's like, sorry, not our fault anymore. You got your phone wet. So, you know, read the small print, obviously. And again, I have people that swear by it, you know, hey, I take my phone underwater all the time. And if that's the risk you want to take, enjoy. But be aware that that is a potential risk. And what I talked about a week and a half ago or so back when I did this on a Monday, and by the way, I've changed this to Friday because I realized after the second live stream that I have to work one Monday each month. So I normally work starting on Tuesdays, but once a month I do a 4-day training this Monday through Thursday. So I wanted to be able to do this every single week. I think I've got things moved around so that I can do this every Friday. I hope that works out for everyone else's schedule, because I do want to have people be able to participate in this live stream. If that's not a good day, I don't know if there's much I can do to change that. However, the time slot is still questionable, so I may move this around a little bit. 2 p.m. seemed like a good time, West Coast for me, but if that doesn't seem to have the same amount of participants coming onto the live stream, I might move that around a little bit, guys, also. And I know that on Friday East Coast time by now, a lot of people's minds are probably on other things besides work, so I'll play with that a little bit. But in any case, what I had talked about on the last live stream was how these phones that are designed to be water resistant actually end up trapping not just moisture that gets inside, because, you know, most of us don't get our phones wet, but they do trap heat on the inside. And I believe that this is what led to my phone overheating, was just the fact that you know, if you have a water resistant or waterproofing of some sort, it's going to be you're not going to have any airflow from the outside. So that's going to make it very difficult for things to cool off. So just something to think about. I am later on going to make my phone not waterproof anymore, because I just got this the other day, and this is probably old news to most of you, but if you remember, I did the glowing light up logo on the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6s. Well, they have one for the iPhone 7, and I've been told that the procedure for this one is a lot easier, because if you take a look at this, it doesn't have that super long cable that goes down into the power supply. It actually attaches to the battery. Hopefully you can kind of see that. So basically what we'd have to do is just remove, that's actually for a plus, but I have an iPhone 7 logo around here somewhere. So this actually just requires you to remove the battery, take the logo off the back, replace it with this little glowing logo, little glowing apple, and then this will connect directly to your battery terminal. So I'll let you know how that turns out. I'll be doing that tutorial probably early next week, more than likely. And as I stated, that will definitely make my phone not water resistant anymore. I'm not heartbroken over that. In fact, I think that if it has a little room to breathe, that would be just fine. I don't take my phone swimming or out in the rain or anywhere else that I have to worry about it getting wet. But obviously, if that's a concern for you, you would want to reconsider. Now, the other thing about this is that obviously when we remove that logo from the back, even if we go in later on and replace it, there's a good possibility that if you were to go to an Apple store, they would tell you that your warranty is voided. And my warranty is actually good until December. So again, you know, for a minute I thought about whether or not that was something I really wanted to do, but it seems to me like most phones will fail in a short period of time if they have a factory defect. So I'm pretty confident that this phone will hold up, as long as I don't get it wet after I put the logo in. But I had also briefly discussed the method that we use for testing iPhone batteries, iPods, iPads, and so forth, and something that you can use for yourself or for your customers if you want to see what sort of lifespan they have left on their battery. So I think it was two live streams ago, I showed you the coconut battery application, and unfortunately I can't stream for some reason on my PC, so I couldn't actually bring this up on the screen, but I did save an image so you can kind of see how this works. So this is a program that you can download for free. It's called 3U Tools, and you can see right up there at the top left-hand corner, the link is 3u.com. And as soon as you plug your phone in and click the trust button, it is going to pull up quite a few different pieces of information about it. As you can see there at the top middle, it says iPhone 7 32 gig. That's what I have. It is running 10.3.3, I believe. And if you take a look at the right-hand side there, it says charging. But most importantly, it will tell you, and by the way, up there at the top right-hand corner where it says Apple ID lock, that is not currently functional because if you didn't already know, Apple's pretty much made it more difficult to figure out whether or not there's an iCloud on someone's phone. So that link does not work. But just below that, you see the production date, week 44 of 2016. So that would tell you that the 44th week of that year was when this specific phone was manufactured. Just below that, if you see warranty date, you click on that and it will take you to a link that tells you the exact week of this year that your warranty will expire, which is very useful. You can see that I've kind of blocked out some of the numbers on my IMEI and my serial number. I'm not even sure that's something to be concerned about anymore, but it's kind of an old habit. We don't generally share that information from our phones or from our customers' phones or anything like that. So normally it would display the full IMEI and serial number. And then if you look right on the right-hand side across from IMEI, it says sales region. So we can see that it was sold in the US. Below that, I'm not sure what disk type is. I think that probably only applies to laptops maybe, but it doesn't show anything when you click on it for this one. But here's the best part of all. Just below that, it will show you the charge times, and that is saying what this program or this phone counts as a complete discharge and charge cycle has taken place 165 times. Now it says that my battery life is at 96%, and if I click on the details right next to battery life, I'll get this image right here, which shows the current status of the battery, which is 84%, the 165 charge times, and then below that, you see the actual capacity, which is what my battery will currently hold, 1884 milliamp hours. The design capacity, which means the 100% capacity of the phone when it was manufactured, would have been 1950. So just below that, we don't have to do the math. It tells us the battery life is currently at 96% capacity. So that would tell me, and then you've got some more information down here, boot voltage, temperature, instant amperage, so forth. So what that would tell me is that my battery does not need to be replaced at this time, probably not anytime soon. But if I had a customer in the store and they were talking about how they're having problems with their battery holding a charge, or maybe I just have a device and I'm not sure, I think it's kind of borderline, you can go in there and get some real numbers that you can provide to people and say, hey, this is what your battery is at right now. And it's a little more credible, I think, than just saying, yeah, you need to replace your battery. Well, I can show you right here with facts and figures that your battery needs to be replaced. Now, I'm looking at the live chat and I don't see activity on the one that I have embedded in this particular window. So I have a feeling I probably did something wrong here, which is unfortunate. I put this, I can see we've got viewers. I don't see any chat. Oh, now I see the chat in another. Okay, hi, Chris. Matt, I have to move this. I have to rearrange this chat because it looks like I must have put the wrong one into my broadcaster. So give me just a second and I'll be able to actually converse with you guys. I kind of had a feeling that was going to happen because I'm me. So let's try this and see if that gives me the right. There we go. Okay, so now I can see you. Awesome. What's up, Christopher? They trap dust and dirt in the ports and speaker grills too. Yeah, there are a lot of downfalls, I think, to, or, there's a trade-off, I guess, for water-resistant phones. And that is that, once everything's packed in there tight and neatly and no way to get in, no way to get out too, right? So it's kind of like a castle, I guess. Hey, glad you guys could join me. Again, I'll be doing this more than likely on Fridays from now on. So just a heads up, anyone who's living in a different time zone, I hope that works for you, 2 p.m. West Coast time or Pacific Standard Time. But again, that will be subject to some adjustment because I want to make this as easy for everyone as possible. So we talked about Sony. I talked about oh yeah. So in addition to changing out and installing this glowing logo, which this one's supposed to do something different. I guess when you tap it, it changes colors or something like that. I don't know. But I will also be replacing the lens on my camera. Where are you? So this thing, it's probably not going to show up here. Nah, it doesn't really. And the funny thing is my camera works just fine, but my lens is already cracked, and this is, you know, whatever the super titanium Gorilla Glass topaz or whatever it is. The thing is that just really gets me about these is, as you know, on the iPhone, we have this camera bump on the back. So every time you sit your phone down on its back, you're sitting it on the camera lens. And there are so many phones out there that are designed this way right now. It makes me nuts. So what do? Do you place it face down so that you scratch up the lens instead? I mean, would it... This cracks me up. So, you know, the big thing is that we want to get the phones as small and lightweight as we possibly can. Would it really bother anyone if the phone was that much thicker? And remember the iPhone 5, everything was nice and smooth across the back and you can set it down on a counter and not lose your lens. Apparently they decided that wasn't the way to go. So I don't know. I wish these manufacturers would consult with us before they design their phones, but they probably wouldn't listen. I really enjoyed the Samsung Galaxy Note 4 because it had a removable battery. Same here. And the Note 4, the Galaxy S5, and I kind of talked to people that I know and people that are in the phone business about this, and it really felt like with the Galaxy S4 for a phone, if you didn't want like a phablet or, you know, something larger, I thought they really nailed it on the size for the Galaxy S4. I've never really been into these elongated, stretched out screens. I know they're supposed to be better for multimedia and stuff like that, but it's a little too tall, or, you know, I have average size hands, but when I'm trying to reach up here to the corner, you really have to reposition the entire phone. And that's not to mention the home button, which is kind of awkward because your thumb doesn't naturally go way down here at the bottom of the screen. You have to shift it all up. So it looks like they'll be getting rid of that. But getting back to the battery, yeah, that was the best thing about a lot of the you know, I thought at the time Samsung was awesome for still having a removable battery. So what did they do? I hate to keep, you know, beating a dead horse, but it seems like every time Apple does something, at about the Galaxy S6, Samsung just decided, hey, let's just do everything like Apple. And that's exactly probably the opposite of what any Android user wants. You know, stop making your phone look like somebody else's. But that's the path that they chose, I suppose. Phones are designed for 2 to 3 years of use. Yeah, and I agree. Not only that, but whether or not they're designed, you know, even if they did last longer than 2 or 3 years, they're going to force updates that are going to make you hate your phone. So you're going to end up buying another one anyways, right? Now, what my question is that since we have the next, I shouldn't say the next iPhone, but supposedly the iPhone 8, if they're really going to have wireless charging inside of that thing, then I would imagine they'll have a glass back. So is that going to be much easier to remove? You know, something like the Galaxy S4 where you can just take out 2 screws and pop the battery out. You know, hopefully that'll happen. And my doorbell rang and the dogs are barking. So I'm going to let them bark and not answer the phone because you guys are way more important than whoever's ringing the doorbell. Unless they ring a second time, then I'll go check it out. But yeah, it kills me that a lot of these phones could last much longer than they do. And it's not necessarily always the hardware failure, but all of the software updates that you're forced into. You know, you don't always have an option of opting out. A good example, my Galaxy S6, I could not stop it from updating. Now, it had a locked bootloader, so I didn't really have, there wasn't a lot I could do. I'm sure if you have root access or if you jailbreak your phone or if you just keep hitting ignore on an iPhone, you can get by for quite a while. But at some point, you may end up updating, you know, whether you like it or not. And if the hardware is still functioning, those software updates just kill everything. I actually had this conversation with someone recently. If you remember, I know this is going way back, but I think it was the iPhone 3G or the 3GS, instead of saying, hey, we're just going to kill this phone because you can't really do that. If you remember, one of the big changes that they made was they upgraded the Facebook application so that if you wanted to use the Facebook app, you had to upgrade to a newer software or a newer firmware. And the 3GS at a certain point did not support, or it might have been the 3G, it did not support the new IPSW, so there wasn't one for that phone. So basically what they're saying is if you want to continue to use Facebook, you have to get a newer iPhone. And that's pretty shady, you know. I can understand shutting down a 2G network because it's antiquated and it's been up forever and, you know, there's so few people out there actually still using it. But at that time, we had a lot of customers who were still using that iPhone and they were working just fine. They had no problems with it. But guess what? If you want this application, now you need a new phone. It's kind of lame. Kind of a lame way, I think, too. And I don't know if they were coordinating with Facebook in some way or another, but I think, you know, it was through the App Store. So I suspect there was some involvement on their part in order to give people an incentive to upgrade. Battery is another problem, because if your battery goes bad, that's the end of the phone until either replaced or the whole phone. Yeah, I mean, unless you can get inside there and change your own battery. And we know that a lot of people don't want to do that themselves anymore, especially with exploding batteries. So yeah, it sucks. I don't know if maybe the goal of having a water-resistant phone was part of the reason that the battery was sealed inside. But yeah, I'm definitely still a big fan of removable batteries. Unless you're selling them, I guess that gives you an incentive to be able to do so. But it does suck for sure. So I was going to actually answer some questions here. And by all means, if you have any, feel free to post them. But one thing that happens here on my YouTube channel, is that I get a lot of questions that I feel like maybe I can cover and someone else might get some benefit, or maybe even actually add some input here. So feel free to speak up if that is the case. So I had one here. Let me scroll down a bit. Where to get this case in India? I am afraid I cannot answer that for anyone. I don't know where to get anything in India, but I would say that if you're trying to buy anything that I'm showing available in the US, it's probably coming from China anyway, so that's usually your best bet. I'll typically check on AliExpress or Alibaba. A lot of times you can get things over there. E-Trade Supply is based in China, I believe, and I'm sure that they ship anywhere on the continent, and Australia also. I think I remember hearing someone from Australia saying it was easier to get things from China, but then they had to pay some ridiculous import tax. If that sounds right, I believe that's the way to go about that. Let's see, what is this? This says, awesome tutorial. Can we get this so you can see the whole screen? Yeah. Awesome tutorial. I have an S4 with normal display, but broken frame. As I know, Galaxy has 2 bezel frame, thick mid frame in front. I've successfully removed the mid frame, but I had a problem for removing the front frame because the display is attached to it. My question is, can I remove the display and component in front frame without damaging it? And thank for your attention, and sorry for my bad English. First off, Daz Triple C, your English is better than a lot of the comments that I get, I think, coming from people who speak the language natively. So no problem with that. Outside of that, yeah, the Galaxy S4, again, really a comfortable form factor. I really like that phone. And as you see, there are still people still using these phones, Christopher, also, because what tends to happen is when we decide that things are end of life cycle, they often end up going overseas. So you have people in other countries who are still using the phones a couple generations back. So I think that they're on here still looking for solutions for those older models. But to answer her question, what I wanted to say is that yes, you can remove the display assembly from the Galaxy S4 mid-frame. I'm not going to call it easy, but it's probably easier for me to show you than to tell you, but you will need to use heat. And if you come in from inside of the battery compartment, that's usually kind of makes it even easier, because there's a very thin plastic kind of flap, I guess you could call it, right behind the battery. And that's about all there is at that point between there and the frame. So you can usually get around the edges, but if your glass is intact and you're trying to remove it, it will make it a little easier. You can use a suction cup and, again, a lot of heat, not too much. I know that doesn't really help. I'd like to give you some specific temperatures, but what happens is if you get it too hot, the glass will start separating from the AMOLED, and if you're trying to get that thing off in one piece, obviously that's going to defeat the purpose. So it absolutely can be done. You just would want to practice and take your time if possible. And if I come across a Galaxy S4, I would not hesitate to make a tutorial for that one. But the fact of the matter is, not a lot of people here using the Galaxy S4 anymore, so I don't see them coming in so much. Battery is another problem. What do you think about the S8 Plus? Yeah, I don't really have too much to say on that yet because I haven't used it. So I'd like to see one. You know, I'd love to play with it. In fact, I'd love to take it apart and see what it looks like on the inside. But I don't really have a lot of input on that one yet. Give me a couple weeks and I'll get back to you. I still have my Note 4, but it's lagging a lot and it's not supported anymore, so it struggles at a time. Yeah, this is what I hate. You know, whether it's Android or iOS, eventually your phone will not handle the new software. And we've seen this happen so many times where people have like a 16 gig iPhone, you know, what, 5S or something, and the operating system, the latest operating system that Apple is still allowing them to update to, takes up so much storage on the phone. It's like you hardly have anything left over. So yeah, it's just ridiculous. I don't know what to tell you on that one. You know, I think that you can, can't you reflash if you, I believe you can reflash an older operating system onto Android, can't you? I'm not 100% on software, so I'm probably not the right person to give you a solution to that. But I think that you can probably get an older version of Android on there, and that would probably help it. And correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody out there knows different, but that would probably be the way to go to make it work. And then, you know, you'd probably have to be rooted in order to prevent it from updating, but that would make your phone work probably a lot better for a lot longer. So I'm going to go back to the browser here for a second. And what was, this thing keeps acting funny on me. Bear with me a second here. Let's see if we can get back onto the comment screen. It's tricky, I tell you. Okay, let's see. I can fix phones pretty well, but I've been having a quality control issue. The sum of the screens that I purchased comes broken. With that said, my question is, how should I go about finding a good parts company? And that is a great question. We hear this one quite often. Kind of comes in waves, you know, and unfortunately it seems like a lot of the parts companies, unless they're doing in-house refurbishing, are buying their screens from, you know, one place or another in China. Now there are, as we learned from Thomas from Repair Traders, there are several iPhone screen and parts assemblers in China, but there's only a very small number of factories that are producing the displays. So what may be happening is there could be either a quality issue at the manufacturing point, or there could be a quality control issue where these phones are being assembled. And that one would be much easier to address, because what you do is you just switch to a different supplier. But I can remember a couple years back, we had a consistent problem with the iPhone 6 screens, regardless of where they came from. And that was because the glue process they were using to attach the screen to the frame was not sufficient. It, you know, basically somebody decided they want to save 25 cents on each screen, which obviously is going to add up if you're assembling a lot of screens. And they cut some corners, and we didn't know until these phones overheat, you know, got warm out in the summer sun, that glue was going to fail. So they had to correct that process. So if there's a problem at the manufacturing level, you're probably going to see this come and go. So I know that right now there are some quality consistency issues, especially with iPhone screens right now coming out of China, kind of across the board. So again, if you have someone that you can find locally who's doing their own refurbishing and they're using OEM LCDs, that's probably the best solution. Obviously, it's probably going to be a much more costly solution, but there are a few manufacturers, and I really don't like to plug names on here. Not because I don't want to give credit where due, but because the consistency of quality does vary from one time frame to another. So what I tell you today, hey, go and buy your parts from this person or this supplier, by the time someone else sees this video in a couple weeks, that can completely change. So there are some resources online. They're kind of questionable, but I think in my last one or two live streams back, I put some manufacturer names in the video description. Feel free to check with them, but just be aware that anyone that I recommend, you know, today doesn't mean that a week or a month or by the time you get your order is going to have the same quality that they do. So for us, it's often kind of trial and error, and hey, we're returning this stuff if it doesn't work. So I would encourage you to deal with someone locally where, or close by, or someone easily accessible, so you can say, hey, I bought 100 screens and 30 of them are bad, and they'll say no problem and take those back and give you credit. It's when we start doing things through the mail and over long distances where we run into problems with that, especially if you have a lot of money tied up in your inventory. Let's see. I was thinking about rooting the Note 4. Yeah, I think maybe Matt can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I believe if he roots the Note 4, can he not then flash a different or an older Android version onto that phone so that it doesn't run as slow? I might be completely wrong. Hopefully I'm not. I heard that the S8 and S8 Plus and Note 8 are using a piece of copper to spread out the heat, but I don't know if that's true. Well, they did that on the S7. You know, they had that little heat pipe, I think they called it, on the inside. And it's entirely possible. I haven't looked inside the phone yet, but those are actually quite effective. I was really surprised by that. In fact, I came across one recently when I was working on a phone that is a couple of years old, a different model, a different manufacturer completely, that has a very thin layer of copper that lays over a piece of the logic board, and they work quite well as a heat sink to dissipate that heat. So there's a good possibility that they're doing that. And let's just hope the batteries don't have any problems, because that would be probably one of the concerns with any Samsung product at this point. Don't want to see that happening again. Mine won't turn on. I've charged it for over a day and shakes it hard for the past hour. What are we talking about? Oh, this is for the charger. Okay, so a long time ago, I did a video review of this little milk bottle phone charger. I'm actually still using it. I think I have it close by here. Let's see. Where'd I put it? No, you know, actually, I think it's in the other room. Sorry if I just bumped the microphone. That one, I really can't tell you anything other than to contact the person that you bought it from. It should come with the 1-year warranty. I don't know of any tips or tricks to make it work, as long as you're sure that it was actually charging. Contact whoever you bought it from. It couldn't have been more than a year ago, I wouldn't think, and I'm sure that they have a warranty on that thing. So that one I really can't answer you, except to refer you to where you bought it from. Can iPhone 6s sticker be used with an iPhone 6? I am pretty sure they can, Alvaro, because they are almost identical in size. And in fact, I want to say that I overheard someone talking about how they do that anyways. They do put the sticker on the iPhone 6, even though it's not required, because for one, it will assist in keeping the screen held on, which you shouldn't need it to do that, but obviously it would have an advantage there. And also, it will increase the water resistance of the iPhone 6. So I'm pretty sure, I'll have to get back to you. I'll actually open up an iPhone 6. I still have a bunch of those stickers here. And in fact, I got my iPhone stickers. And by the way, for those of you who are fixing phones, consider buying the adhesive waterproofing template for the iPhone 7. They are way easier to install than the 6S. They're not, if you saw my 6S video of installing that sticker, it's no wonder that most people just decide not to do it at all. But with the iPhone 7, they have a very nice, do I have one laying around here? I don't know where I put them. I think they're up on the shelf somewhere. But it's super easy to install, and if you're fixing someone's iPhone 7 and it comes in water resistant, often you're going to get that question, is my phone still going to be waterproof? You know, they're always going to use that term, and you're going to say no, your phone's not going to be waterproof now or then, especially with the broken screen. But we can get it back as close to factory spec by reinstalling the adhesive on the inside, and they're probably 75 cents a piece or something like that, but they're way more rigid, so they don't kind of just collapse and sticks to themselves while you're installing them. So I would encourage you to put those into your customers' phones, just as a, you know, as a service to the customer. You know, their best chance of their phone surviving what they, you know, we know they put them through crazy stuff, is to get it back to original as much as possible. And then, of course, sell them a tempered glass or an OtterBox or something that's going to help them prevent that from happening in the future. Samsung batteries have improved for safety, and actually their battery technology is even better than before. So I believe Samsung fixing their battery issues. Interesting thing about Samsung, I did this on a podcast earlier this week that was audio only, so it's not on YouTube. Samsung has actually developed a new technology that supposedly is going to allow them, probably not this year, but for their Galaxy S9, they're saying they have a new technology that is going to allow them to put the components on the logic board closer to each other in order to basically free up some space on the inside of the handset so they can put a bigger battery in. So I'm sure you're absolutely right. They have better technology for batteries. I mean, Apple used to have great technology for batteries. It seems like that's kind of gone downhill over the last few phones, especially with the 6S, obviously. But the interesting thing was, in that podcast, I also talked about a newer technology that's going to hopefully be coming available very soon, and that is zinc air batteries. So as you know, we're currently using lithium ion and lithium polymer batteries for cell phones, and they work, but there are a number of challenges for producing those batteries. One is getting the materials in the first place, and then obviously it comes with some risk involved, because if you short the anode and cathode together inside those batteries, or you basically start the process of thermal runaway, it can make your battery explode at any given time. So once that process starts up, you may not know it, and your battery can just explode out of the blue. Well, apparently the zinc oxygen or zinc air batteries are supposed to be much safer and more efficient. They're claiming, and by the way, these are the type of batteries that they use in hearing aids right now. And up until this point, they have had some technical problems that made it very difficult for them to charge and discharge properly on larger devices. Well, there is a team of scientists or students or someone who figured out a way to make that happen. And they're saying that these batteries will be up to 5 times as, or hold as 5 times as much of a charge as a lithium ion battery of the same size. So if you can imagine your battery going 5 times as much as it does now, you could even reduce the size of the battery inside of a phone by 50%, and it would still last twice as long as the current technology does. So I'm not sure where exactly they are on that at this point, but I'm hoping that the next generation of Galaxies that we see, and possibly, you know, it may be 2 generations away, but hopefully the next generation or 2 of Galaxies and iPhones should be utilizing that technology, unless there's some, you know, something that they've overlooked that's going to prevent that from happening. But that could be longer lasting, safer batteries for everyone, which will be awesome. Yeah, and they won't have to mine for a lot of the materials that go into lithium ion batteries, and that comes with its own set of problems and political implications and so forth. So apparently zinc is plentiful, so we would have easier access to it, and it should be a lower cost of manufacturing as far as I can tell. So that would be awesome. Looking forward to that one. Let's see. Okay, no one else asked about this. Okay, I have no one else to ask about this. My phone is an M919N, originally a Metro phone, and I used my Simple Mobile on it a few days ago. A few days ago it started with I can't hear calls, and they can't hear me unless I'm on Wi-Fi. They can't hear you unless you're on Wi-Fi. Okay, I've tried everything except doing this since getting SIM card error and restart. I'm assuming this is my issue. Now, question is the reader for the M919 and M919N different? I don't want to get the wrong part. Okay, oh, so this is from the Galaxy S4 SIM card replacement video. So, Jerry, here's the thing. I'm not sure that the problem that you're having has to do with your SIM card reader. So this may or may not solve your problem. The good news is that all of the Galaxy S4s have the exact same type of SIM card reader. So they're interchangeable. You don't have to worry about getting a 919 or a 919N. As far to the best of my knowledge, they are across the board from every carrier exactly the same. That shouldn't be a problem. The fact that people can hear you on Wi-Fi and not otherwise makes me wonder if there isn't something else going on with your phone. There are some other problems that will cause the no SIM error. The replacement of the SIM card tray is definitely a good place to start, but it's not always going to solve their problem. There are actually some components on the logic board that can go bad and would be kind of beyond a do-it-yourself repair for most people. So I would start with the SIM card reader. They're very cheap. They're like $4 or $5, I think. And if that doesn't solve your problem, then you'd want to investigate further or maybe consider another phone. You can probably pick up a logic board for a Galaxy S4 relatively cheap at this point, I would imagine. Yeah, I hope that happens soon too. So what is next here? I'm going to eventually run into a question that I can't answer. I'm confident of that. I have a gray wire under the blue charging port on my phone. It's plugged into the W port. What is it for? Doesn't matter. Don't remove it. Oh, Galaxy S5. You probably have an LTE model of the Galaxy S5. If you have Verizon, and I want to say Sprint, they have 2 different antennas down there at the bottom. Just make sure you plug them both in exactly where you found them, and you shouldn't have any problems. That one comes up quite a bit. And by the way, that means that those ports are not interchangeable. If you get a Galaxy S5 charging port from AT&T, you cannot put it into your Verizon phone. Not going to work properly. Obviously, there will be no place to plug that wire in. Oh, how Home Depot has retired that specific driver. What? Although I use Weha and iFixit, I already know what you're talking about. You're talking about my Husky, right? Yeah. Oh, look, it's in the thumbnail too. Home Depot did not really retire that driver. I'm gonna grab one right now. They, as far as I know, at least the Home Depot in my area, and by the way, this is still one of my favorite screwdrivers. This is the Husky. Let's see if we can get it in front of the camera there. Whoa. Okay, so Husky had a different type of handle, and they did change that so it looks a little different than the old one I used to use, but they still sell the Huskies, at least at my local Home Depot. I love the screwdriver. It will last you years and years and years. The only catch is this. Oh, and there, check this out. You have a Phillips and a standard on this one bit, and if you open up the handle down here at the bottom, you have 3 additional bits. So various sizes for this. It does contain 000 and 00, so you can use it for Galaxies and for Samsungs. It is a high quality bit. These things don't break. I've never seen one break so far. Here's the catch, and here's what you have to know about this. Well, first of all, get it back inside the deal here. When you buy these things out of the box, the only downside is that the tips on these Huskies tend to be a little too tall. So what happens is if you're working on something like an iPhone or a Samsung, you are very likely to strip those screws because that high point in the middle is going to make the driver not seat properly. They call it camming out. So it just kind of spins around. It starts to eat up the head on the screw. So if you have a Dremel, you can take just the tip of these off. If you don't have one handy, I've taken these out on the concrete and scraped them across the sidewalk a couple times, just enough to take off a tiny little bit of that tip, and then you have a driver that will last you for years and years. These are like $6. So, you know, I've tried all sorts of fancy tools. I have some that I prefer over others. What I don't like about the Huskies is that they roll. So they don't have that hexagon or octagon shape anywhere. If you leave it on the workbench, it can roll away from you. But other than that, for the price, you really can't beat it. There are other drivers that are nicer than that, but they definitely get the job done. Maybe it is his SIM card or something inside the phone. Yeah, it could be so many different things. That's a good point. You know, it could, but what he said was that people can hear him on Wi-Fi, but not over when he's using the network. So that would lead me to believe that there's something that sounds weird. You know, why would his phone, he's connecting the call, it sounds like, but people can't hear him. So I think there's probably something else failing. I suspect it's not is going to be as easy as a SIM card replacement, but maybe he'll get lucky. Hopefully for him it will. Although I use Weha and iFixit, I still like my cheapies for quick fixes or as loaner tools. Yeah, you know, I have no problem leaving my Husky laying on the desk because I know it's not going anywhere or to loan to somebody, because if worst case scenario, you're out $5 as opposed to your $20 Weha or your iFixit toolkit. If you fully turn off your phone, there is no need to unplug the battery. Alan Fly, iPhone 6s. Okay. Yes, there is. But let's read the whole comment here. If you fully turn off your phone, there's no need to unplug the battery. With no connector sticking up, it's much, much easier to align the template, holding the gasket to the phone body. No cutting or other screwing around needed. I would not waste my time disconnecting the battery. It is a pain to do, but not nearly as difficult. Oh, I found that the gasket stuck down under much better after I fully cleaned the case attachment area with alcohol. Get fingerprint oil. I don't know about the cable for the glowing logo. Okay, so this is not good, and no disrespect, dude, but I got to disagree with you here, Alan Fly, because here's the problem. And in fact, I wish I could pull up a schematic, but I can't use ZXW on my Mac. So you'll have to take my word for it. On your iPhone screen, let me see if I have a cable laying around here somewhere. Give me 1 second. All right, so this is an iPhone, and by the way, we see this a lot. So if you just Google or search on YouTube for iPhone 6s backlight repair, you'll see that what's happening is people are in fact not unplugging their batteries before they change the screens out, and it is killing part of the system that basically enables your screen to illuminate. So if we look at an LCD, which is this is I think a 5C screen, okay? Same concept though, on just about any iPhone. We have an image that appears on the screen when the phone's working, And the only reason that you can see that image, and one of the big differences between LCD technology and AMOLED, is that there is a system called backlight which goes across the top. It's under a very thin piece of tape right up here at the upper end of the phone. And that backlight system will shine light behind the display so that you can see what's on the screen. So if you've ever had a phone that turns on and you can just barely, and more than likely an iPad mini, because they're notorious for the same problem, if you can just see the image, and sometimes if you shine a flashlight down inside, you'll be able to see it, or if you take it into a very dark room and power up the phone, you'll see a very, very faint apple here. That is happening because the backlight failed. And the reason these backlights fail is because somewhere that power is running through ends up shorting directly to ground in most cases, and it causes failure of one of the components in that backlight circuit system. So on the iPhone 6s, and this is, again, on the iPad minis, this happens all the time, and the reason is when your battery is plugged in, if you could take this connector, and you guys, you'll have seen how small these connectors are, right? That's not going to focus very well, but you can see there are individual gold teeth that go all the way across those little connectors. Well, if you could plug your screen into your phone in exactly the right spot while the battery's plugged in, you would not have a problem. But when you're dealing with the iPad mini, iPad mini 2, the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus, there is live voltage going to the connector that this plugs into when the battery's attached, even if the phone is turned off. So what happens is there are two connections that sit right next to each other on here. And on the logic board itself, those connectors are not supposed to touch each other. If they do, it kills the backlight system. Well, if obviously you plugged a few of these in before. When you go to connect this, if you're off by just a fraction of a millimeter here, you're going to be right in between those two connectors. You're going to bridge them together, and you'll cause that circuit to go, basically to feed voltage into a place that it's not supposed to be. So when that happens, it will typically kill the backlight system. And good for you if you've never had that happen before, but I would be concerned anytime someone is working on an iPhone 6s or a 6s Plus, and again for the iPad minis, it happens all the time. If you don't disconnect the battery before you plug the screen in, there's a good chance that something's going to go wrong. And you might be more precise than everyone else, but a lot of people out there have been having this problem, and for that reason, I would advise against anyone, unless you're willing to accept that risk, from going and taking the screen off and putting it back on with the battery attached, because unless you can repair the backlight system, that means you're going to have to pay someone to do it for you, and it will require micro soldering. So unless you've got that experience and that equipment on hand, you now have a phone that doesn't light up anymore. So that's just my opinion. I'm not going to do it. If you choose to, I wish you the best of luck, but that can be very, very dangerous as far as having a functional screen. All right, so you guys should try Indonesian popular dishes like beef rendang. Okay, why are people commenting about this? Well, last year, we did a Americans Try Indonesian Snack video just for fun. It was a blast. We tried a bunch of Indonesian snacks. Some were liked, some were not liked as much, but an interesting thing happened when I posted this. We really wanted to just do a reaction video and have fun with it. And some of the things, obviously people have different palates from one part of the world to the next. And, a lot of people probably wouldn't like the food that I ate and so forth. But we wanted to get honest reactions from people and not just, yeah, this tastes good, this tastes good, this tastes good. We wanted to, have real honest reactions from people and have some negative ones where they said, oh, this is not something that I would eat, whatever words they want to put it into. And I thought it was all done in the spirit of let's have fun and just try something different. Well, when the video went up and there were some negative reactions on it to some of the foods we tried, I know I'm way off topic here, but some people in Indonesia took it personally, as if it was a criticism of their cuisine, which by no means, these were snacks. These were things that came in a bag. So, if someone came to the US and ate Doritos and didn't like them, well, I might wonder what's wrong with them, but I wouldn't be offended, It's not like we're preparing the food in our homes and, serving it as a meal. But anyway, someone got pushed out of shape. I did not mean any disrespect or to insult anyone, but I will try slow cooked bead. I imagine that's supposed to be beef. Yeah, beef rendang, slow cooked beef. I don't know where to get it. We don't have any Indonesian restaurants close by. If I find one, I will absolutely try your recommendations. What's the cable on the right side of the camera? I can't look that up right now because it's not going to play. I don't know what that was. iPod ignoring unsupported, device unsupported. That's got to be a Gecko toolkit. That means that you either have the wrong iPod or you don't have all of the drivers installed. So you have to read in the video description to get an answer to that one. That is for a password recovery program that is still working on the iPod Touch. If you have a 4-digit numeric password, it also works on the iPhone 4. You can, in fact, recover those passwords, but people who can't figure out how to use the software will constantly tell me that it doesn't work. So I don't know what to do there. Have you been worried about your husband, that he is catching on you? What? Gigi Brian, stop spamming my channel. Could not bind to port. Again, that's another Gecko error. And thanks so much for posting what? No, iPhone 6 charging port. Matthew, I owe you on this one. People love this iPhone 6 charge port cleaning video. So I will at least buy you lunch or something next time I see you for sure. Okay. So I think that was pretty much everything I was going to cover. I might have 2 more things here. Give me 1 second. Let's cover the main question. And this was kind of a question for people who are in the phone business. I did want to talk about this, and that was the title for the live stream, I think, if I'm on the right live stream. One of these days I'll get it figured out. Do you sell parts? So I wanted to throw this out here. I had actually planned on throwing that out at the beginning because I knew that there would be some delay between what you see and what you're hearing me say and everything that comes through the chat. So I wanted to give plenty of time for everyone to kind of think about that. And I don't have an answer. I can tell you what I do, but I can't really give you a right or wrong answer. And the question is, if someone comes into your store, and hopefully my volume's not too loud because it looks like I'm clipping here a little bit. If someone comes into your store and they need a repair, but they don't want you to repair the phone, they just want you to sell them the replacement part. What is your policy? Or if you're not running a cell phone business and you're a do-it-yourself or a customer and you go to a store, would you expect them to sell you a replacement part for your phone so that you can perform your own repair? Now, just off the top of my head, and I'm open to hear anyone's position on this, obviously, but off the top of my head, I'm going to say in most cases, my answer would be no. And not because I'm worried about, obviously, if someone comes in and buys the part, I can't sell them that part at cost and make a profit, right? So that would require me to mark up the part a certain percentage so that we can continue to do business. You can't sell your stuff for the same price you get it, right? So obviously what's going to happen in most cases is they're going to say, well, I looked on whatever website and I can buy it for this price. Well, yes, obviously, there are, not all parts are equal. We know that. That's difficult to explain to most customers if it's their first time they're doing a project like that. But beyond that, also, if you're running a real brick and mortar business and you have a physical location with overhead that's got to be supported, you can't sell your products for the same price. Even if it is the exact same product, you can't sell it for the same price that Amazon or eBay or anyone else online might be doing it. So that is part of the equation. Now, in addition to that, probably my bigger concern is this. When you sell someone a part, or if you were to sell someone a part for them to repair their own phone, and this is one of the reasons I'm not in the parts business. I sell some tools, but that's it. And they're not unbreakable, but much less likely to fail. But when you get into things like LCDs and charge ports and other things that can potentially not be working properly, what happens when you sell it to someone, they take it home, install it into their device, and then later on have a problem with it because they are going to come back to you and say, I bought this part from you. And you could either say, well, I'm going to sell it to you as is, no warranty. And we know that while that is an option, it never really leads to anything good in the worst case scenario, because no matter what you tell someone, if you say there is no warranty, take it as is, there's nothing, you buy it, it's 4 parts not working. If what they want to work on that device isn't working, they're not going to be happy. They may complain. They might want to return it. They might write a bad review about you, whatever. But long story short is if they don't get what they think they're getting or they're unsatisfied with it for any reason, they're going to let you and possibly other people know. So this would be my main concern. Now, obviously, something could go wrong while they're performing their own repair. It could totally be their fault. But again, you're in that situation where you have someone, and some people are going to say, hey, you know, it was me. I screwed up. I broke it. It's my fault. Let me buy another one. And they're not going to be super happy, but you're going to have other people who are going to try to put that responsibility on you. Now, what if you do sell them a defective part? You know, what if it's a week or two later and it stops working? How do we know that it failed not due to improper installation, but because there was a problem with the part itself? That's kind of a gray area. And if you have a very good relationship and return policy with your vendor, that might be an option. But again, with what we've seen as far as inconsistency goes with parts, I would be very hesitant to really want to sell anyone a part so that they could perform their own repair. Now, at one time we had people who were, you know, very insistent that they didn't want to pay us to do it, and they would almost pay the price of the repair just so they could get the part and they could do the repair themselves because they saw a video and, you know, felt that they were capable of performing that. And that's fine and everything. And in fact, at one point we put together a kit. So we would sell them the screen, the screwdrivers that they needed, any adhesive that was required, and so forth. And we didn't have any problems with it at the time, but that was when phones were slightly easier to work on. You know, I couldn't imagine selling someone any sort of AMOLED screen at this point for them to do their own repair. I couldn't imagine selling someone an iPhone 7 screen and have them try to put their phone together and have their home button be working after they finish. So for me, it's not something that I would do. I'm curious to hear what other people's policies are. And probably a related question is, what happens if another store, you know, another local store comes to you and says, hey, we ran out of this part. Can we buy some from you? And we're willing to sell you parts if you run out of something, and let's work together and be friends. And has anyone tried that? And if so, how did it work out? I have my doubts about that one. But it's something that's happened more than once where another, you know, a tech or a rep from another store has come in and said, hey, you know, we really need some help. And if it was someone that we've done some work for in the past, you know, like maybe they outsource some of their high level repairs to us because they don't do them in their location. In that situation, I might consider something like that. Again, with them having the knowledge of, you know, once you take this part, it's in your possession. You're responsible for whatever happens with it, including returning it to wherever it was purchased from. But again, one of the things that can probably just quickly get out of control if you don't stay right on top of, you know, if you, and probably a reason that a lot of businesses don't mix together, you know, and don't have that sort of cooperative agreement from one company to the next. And that is, at some point, one person is getting a much bigger benefit out of it than the other. And on the other hand, you know, pretty soon you might have them at your store every day asking for something. And obviously, you're not in business to keep them in business. So that's another one that I would kind of shy away from, I think, in most situations. Whew. All right, so it has been 56 minutes into this live stream. It only took me 10 to figure out where the chat was, but got it all caught up. I want to thank everyone who basically either participated, or even if you're just playing this in the background, that's awesome. My intention here was to have something that people in our industry might find informative. You know, hopefully I'm giving you some information that's helpful or entertaining, or you can learn something from. And I'm going to leave the chat open for about another 5 minutes in case there's something that is just kind of lagging and hasn't come through yet. Otherwise, I will be back next week, Friday, 2 p.m., and I will promote the next live stream a little more than I did this one. This was kind of last minute. I just basically set it up last night because I wanted to get back on here and not skip an entire week again like I did last week. But from now on, until further notice, I will try to do this every week at 2 p.m. on Friday. And once I get my microscope situation figured out, I'll have much cooler stuff to show you on a board level for repairs and stuff like that. So I will put this back on something. There we go. That's my favorite. Oh, you know what's funny? It actually has the chat from from a couple weeks ago. All right, so let's go back to 3U Tools just in case anyone forgot or wanted to know what the name of that was. And again, I'll keep the chat open for a few minutes. And can we add the chat to this screen? I think we can. Let's see if we move that over here. I will say this OBS, this Open Broadcaster thing is pretty cool. It doesn't want to work on my Windows machine for some reason, but can't have everything, right? Okay, how do we add? That's bizarre. I'm trying to figure out how did I add the chat over here. I have chat here, but I don't have chat here. Has it really been that long? I forgot what the chat shows up as. So the chat is, well, that didn't help. Well, what if we do this instead? I will just go ahead and add something right like that. And then we have chat. And this thing. And we have the scroller down at the bottom. That doesn't look too great, does it? Let's do this. Oh yeah, I just remembered something. Let's get rid of this. That looks ridiculous. Yes, I'm sure. Okay, WhatsApp. Does anyone use this thing, this WhatsApp? I've been talking to manufacturers in China, and apparently this WhatsApp is their preferred method of communication, and I cannot get the thing to work on my phone. I'm not a technical genius. I know how to fix phones, but I don't know how to use them apparently. But I've got this WhatsApp installed on my phone, and when I punch in my phone number to add it, it says it's not a valid number, and I've tried every combination you can think of. So I don't know how that works. I also don't understand why I can't just email someone in China and have them say, yeah, we'll sell you this, or, you know, sell you samples or whatever. They want to get on this WhatsApp deal, and we're like 12 hours away from each other, so that's not going to be very convenient. But I cannot get WhatsApp to do anything for me. So if anyone knows what, I think WhatsApp is kind of an Asian, more predominantly used in Asia than it is over here. I don't even know anyone who uses WhatsApp. So they said Skype, and really I hate Skype for other reasons. So I'm not going to that. But anyhow, I am going to get off here. It is 3:01. Again, thanks for joining. I'll see you next week, 2 p.m. on Friday.